Hey y'all, welcome back to Eden's Vine. We're out here today and we're gonna prune some grapevines. I'm gonna show you guys how I do this. I'll show you on a few rows or two, and then I'll time lapse, and when I get it done I'll upload this video, or I might just upload just a couple rows and then later sometime down the road show you what it looks like when it's all done. But just a real quick walkthrough of why we prune. Okay, so the first thing is a little grapevine biology. So we're going to take a look at these buds right quick, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to tell you like why we prune so high for this first initial prune, this rough pruning. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk a little bit about the fine pruning, and then I'll have another video on fine pruning later. Okay, so the main thing with rough pruning is we need to get all of this out of the way, and people are like, well, why do you need to do that? Why can't you just leave them? Because each one of these buds should have a couple clusters of grapes in them. So then you would just be loaded up with all these grapes. So why not just keep all these clusters? Well, the first thing is inside of each one of these buds are 2 shoots as well as those clusters. So, well, a shoot anyway. So we got one, we actually have 3 shoots inside of here. We've got the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. And the primary comes out, it usually has 2 clusters. And then if we look down here, we'd have the same thing. And then we look a little lower, we'd have the same thing. And we look a little lower, we'd have the same thing. And before you know it, all of this would be so crowded out, you couldn't develop any of that fruit. So we have to kind of do a cost-benefit analysis on this, like how much fruit can we carry and how much space do we have on our vine. We'll get in more into that when we get into the fine pruning and we talk about dialing it back to just 2 bud spurs. But right now, the main thing is we need to get all of this weight off of these trellises so that it's cleaned up and ready to go for the growing season. And after we get all this weight off, we need to pull it out of the vineyard, and we need to do so in a way that it doesn't mess up our irrigation lines, it doesn't mess up anything else that we're doing like with new grapevines. So there are a couple ways to do this. The first way is with a hedger. Mechanized hedgers that can attach to the front of tractors or the side of a tractor is one of the best ways to do this, although they couldn't get in here with my little Y T-posts at the top with my Y-shaped trellises at the top. So we would have to change that. If we were completely mechanized, we would have to go to these 6-inch cross arms, most likely, but probably no more than an 8-inch cross arm if we're going to bring a hedger through here. The other thing that, with the mechanized hedger that's on a tractor anyway, I'm going to use a hedger, and that hedger will cut through smaller stuff like this, but occasionally I'm going to run into a big bull cane. Here's one, a big bull cane. And if you look at it, it's about the size of my index finger, whereas these other canes are about half the size of my index finger. So this big bull cane is kind of a fruitless cane, and so actually I'm going to cut it back way down there and get rid of it entirely. Maybe let it bud out and just see what happens, but most likely I'll get rid of that entirely. And to do that, I'm going to use my pruning shears. So I'm going to show you how I do this. Last thing I want to talk about before I get started. It is possible to cut one of these wires with my pruning shears. I've never done it with the hedger, and I've never done it with mechanical pruning shears. I have done it with the mechanized pruning shear that's on a battery pack that I just showed you guys. And so I've got to be really careful around these wires with that tool, because I don't want to have to go fix trellis. The other thing is when I yank on these grapevines, they've got what's called tendrils. And here's a little tendril, and it allows that cane to tie itself up kind of like a hand or an arm, and it has a little, it has like a little sensory, it's got like a little sensory system here, not like with a nervous system or anything like that, but it's got like a chemically driven sensory system here that allows it to grab on to this to this wire. And so when this tendril touches, when the tip of that tendril touches that wire, it'll start wrapping around that wire. And sometimes these can get really thick. And so when I go to like pull on that, it was a little hard to do. And some of them will get so thick that you can't really get them off of there. And if you can't get them off of there, then you got to make more cuts, because you don't want to be yanking on your trellis and messing up like your T-posts or anything else that's going on in the vineyard. So more cuts, not fewer cuts. At the same time, it's kind of a balance, because we want to be economical with our cuts, because we don't want to waste a lot of time doing this. This is already a time exhaustive process. This is probably one of the most time consuming processes in the vineyard, next to harvest. So this and harvest are the times when I spend the most time in the vineyard. And you can say, well, those in posts took you a lot of time to put in. And that is true. They did take a long time, but remember, those in posts are in, they're metal. The wooden in posts were in. I didn't have to mess with them again for 10 years. So these metal ones, I might not have to mess with again in my life. So, but pruning, this is an every year task. Harvest is hopefully an every year task. We don't want to go a year without a harvest, because that means something really bad happened to the grapes through that year. So anyway, we're going to get started on this. You guys let me know if you have any questions or a better way to do it. Again, I'm very eager to learn on how to do this stuff better. And you know, for me and my application, you know, a multi-$1,000 hedger on my tractor wouldn't make sense here. So that's not an option for me, and I'd have to upgrade my tractor to have enough horsepower and pressure to be able to operate one of those tools anyway. So here we go. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to try to get this started up. It's been kind of a bear. It does fire up, but it doesn't like to keep running. So we might just be using the battery powered tool today. But we're gonna give this another go, and you know, once I get it running, it's fine. But when I let it sit for a second and try to do something else, it likes to shut down on me. So I don't know if I'm losing compression or something on it and maybe need a new one. But anyway, here we go. We're going to try to get this fired up, and I'll show you what that looks like. Those of you who I played hockey with know how I like the carabiners. So I'm going to take this carabiner and just hook it on my hammer loop on my pants. And I could get a tool belt. That might be helpful, but I don't need that many tools out here. But my gloves do get in the way. So anyway, there we go. Just clipped on there. I'll just let it hang there, and when I need it, it'll be there. All right. Let's see if I can get in a place where you guys can see me get this fired up. So as you can see, this tool, when it works, it speeds up my day. But even when it works, I still have to come through and fine it out a little bit and make some more cuts so I can get the prunings off of the trellis. But as you can see, I was running it, and whenever I need to just like switch hands to get some relief, this tool is shutting down on me. So again, it could just, I got this off the marketplace, so it might have been abused before I got it. I don't know. But when it works really well. So I'm sure that I'm sure that I'm not advertising for them. I got nothing invested in them, as far as I know. But they've got a good reputation, make a lot of good tools. I'm sure if this was new out of the box, it might be just fine. But I did get this from somebody else off of the marketplace. So maybe that's the problem with it. But it does seem to me like I've already changed the spark plugs, cleaned the carburetor, cleaned the filter on it, done all that good stuff. So I'm not too sure. The only thing else I can really think of is that there might be a compression issue. So, and if that's the case, then I would probably just go for a new tool. I'm going to try a few more times to get this started. If I can't, I'm going to go back to the pruner method. It's not that much slower, but it's definitely not quicker. Again, like, this thing just doesn't want to idle, so it's really wearing out the forearms, it's really wearing out the hands. I'm not as gassed as I could be, but I'd be lying if I said it was easy. This is a little heavy. It's not the heaviest one, but with it not idling, it doesn't allow me to take a break. And if I take a break, you saw what I gotta go through. I gotta yank on that thing. So anyway, these 2 rows are pretty good and chopped up. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my hand pruners here on the battery pack. I really like them, but the key to that is I gotta make sure this left hand stays away from that pruner. So one of the reasons I got it is when I messed up my shoulder playing hockey, I was in a sling, and in that sling, I couldn't do any of this. That was about the same time of year last year. So, yeah, I think it was. It was about the same time. So I was in a sling, and last year I used that battery-powered hand pruner to get this done, and the way I did it is I had that arm in a sling, so it was away from my body. Well, when my arm finally got out of the sling, I started recognizing how dangerous that hand pruning battery-powered tool was, because it doesn't recognize the difference obviously between your finger and a cane. So you gotta keep your hand away. So you really don't even want this hand anywhere near the vine. You're using the other one. You kind of put it in a pocket, leave it in the pocket, and use your hand pruner here. Use this hand pruner, and see once I hit the safe button, hit the button. Well, it should go. It says it's got power. Let's see. So hit it, and it's gonna go. So there's not a thing I can do about that. So I definitely, and I got my hands near the blade right now, just cleaning them off, but they're to the outside of the blade. But you definitely don't want your hand in there when you're on that safety and you're on that button, because it doesn't stop. It's not fast, but it's just like if you're not paying attention, your finger's gonna get it. So, alright, I'm gonna go do this. So you guys are gonna see. I'm gonna start in the back and start working my way up this way, because walking over Grapevine Pruning to get back here, you're gonna see how tough that really is. I'm gonna try to put all of these prunings in this row, but that might not be a good idea. So I'm gonna start. Yeah, I might need these guys on this outside here, I'm actually going to put them to the outside, because that's going to make it easier for me to get them. I'm not dragging as many prunings through the vineyard. These guys on this row here are row 13. I'm going to put them right here in this alley. Okay? All right. don't know how much of that row you could see, but you probably could see some of that work. When I'm done, I'll take you through and show you what's still left. There's still a lot left. I mean, they look like deer antlers right now, right? There's a lot going on. Two reasons for that. First reason is February can be a harsh winter month for us in Texas. And if we get a harsh freeze, usually those vines take it on the nose. What I mean by that is they take it near the tips of their canes rather than deep into the cane. Now, sometimes the freeze is so bad that it does lead to a big dieback, but usually not. Usually we just see like those first few buds at the tip, they get frostbitten, they get winterized. Sometimes the really pencil thin canes, they'll get frozen, and then they won't come back or they'll die. And so we'll cut those off. So I like to leave more than I need. And then when we get to the fine pruning, which is after that last freeze, usually late February, early March, when I start to see buds swell and before things bud out, because once things bud out, you start knocking stuff off. So there's another time-sensitive task in there where you got like a week or two to get it done. But you come in and you cut that back to 2 bud spurs. And when we do that, if the cane that's above that 2 bud spur is still good, we can plant that. With some varietals, we can plant that directly into the ground, put a little wax around the tip of it, put a little rooting hormone at the base, stick that thing in the ground, and those buds, instead of becoming shoots with fruit, they'll become roots when they're in the ground. Another way we can do it is we can take that cane, if it's still good, and graft it on to another vine, like a rootstock vine, or a vine that's more native to Texas. Anyway, some people cut this off and then take this and put it in like a nursery. We put it in a room that has temperature control and humidity control, and maybe they even bury them through the winter. We don't do that here. We don't have enough space for that. So I don't need that many vines, right? I'm not trying to make my living off selling like 1 million grapevines or more every year. I'm trying to grow the fruit. So for me, what's left out there at the end of the winter is good enough to help me replace some vines, unless I want to do like a new varietal or something. Anyway, I'm gonna get started on this next row. that's it. That was an hour and 18 minutes. I'll speed it up so you don't have to watch the whole hour and 18 minutes, okay? Sound good? But yeah, hour and 18 minutes, 2 rows. I've got 14 rows. Not all of them are as intensive as these Sangiovese because of how I trellis them over here with the Y cross arms. There's a little bit more growth with the Sangiovese. They're a little bit more vigorous than some of the other varietals, so I don't have quite as much. But if you think about an hour, hour and a half per row, so multiply that by 7, that's a good full day work, you know. So obviously I'm not going to do this for a full day because it's the weekend. I've got other things I need to do, but I'm definitely going to get this done, the entire thing done, in a couple weeks. So I'll probably take 2 or 3 hours every day on the weekend to do this. Treat it like exercise, like going to the gym, like anything else, right? Make that a little bit of my time carved out in the day, and then after that I'm gonna go hang out with my family, have a good day. So that's how we do it. I'm going to walk you through and show you what these canes look like right now. They're clearly not done. As I said, I'm holding a lot back just in case I want to turn those into new grapevines and or graft them onto other rootstock. What else? Oh, I'm also holding them back for the freeze. Okay, because we might not get. You never know. This is Texas, so I don't want to jinx myself one way or another. But what I do hope is that we don't warm up, bud out, and then freeze. So that's not the nice way to do it. Anyway, I'll show you what that looks like. Last thing, glasses, absolutely essential while doing this. I can't tell you how many times I got smacked in the face by one of these grapevines. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I did take one found its way under my glasses and kind of got my eye just right there a little bit. So make sure they're on your face very well. And you might even, I don't like those, but you might even want some like goggle type glasses when you're doing this. It's up to you. I don't do that. I wear these. But you are going to take some canes. All right, let me turn this camera around. Let me set this to you. I'll show you what the grapevines look like right now. All right, so here we go. This is a new vine, maybe a couple years old, and it's about to go into its 3rd growing season, so we should see some fruit on it. But I've got it up here. It's above my cordon wire, so I've got that up there. And what I'm hoping is that I'll get a shoot coming out this way, and from down here somewhere I'll get another shoot going out the other way. Okay, this down here I'm just saving in case I want to plant it. All this stuff, when we get to the fine pruning, all that stuff will come off, but I'm not going to use that battery powered tool for that. Same thing here. I've got a choice and decision to make, but that's a problem for future Kyle. That's not my problem today. All right, this guy needs a little bit of attention. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with him yet, or her, or it's a hermaphrodite, so it has both parts here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. What I'd like to do is come in here and take some of these and retrain a new vine, because I want to get back up here on my cordon wire, and this is a little bit low. I don't want to pick fruit down there. I want to pick fruit up here, so I'm standing tall rather than hunched over the whole time or sitting on a bucket. All right, so I'm probably gonna cut that arm off, cut this arm off, and retrain maybe from that cane or one of these other canes over here. All right, so they kind of look like deer antlers. They're just up to or just barely above that first catch wire right now. And same thing with that guy. See, he's kind of drooping a little bit, so I might retrain him in the middle. This is a new vine, again, relatively new, going into its 3rd year. This is where I would kind of like, this is actually a little high for, I was playing around with this vine, seeing if I really wanted the fruit up here near chin level. So this vine is just, actually that's a little high. Puts a little bit more stress on the shoulders working fruit off of this vine. So kind of really want to be down here. I would have liked if it were down here somewhere. But I was just toying around seeing what I could get out of that one. This one is where I want the cordon. Okay. I don't have one trunk, I actually have two. We get crazy weather out here, so sometimes when I can have two, I like to keep two. But this is what I want it to really look like. Obviously stuff like this is going to come off during the fine pruning, and I'm going to pick one of these two shoots, probably this one, and I'm going to cut it back to one bud under here, and then there's another bud right here. Okay, so 2 buds, and I'll cut, and I'll do that all the way through this vine. And what I want to make sure of is that all of my spurs, my 2 bud spurs, are about a hand apart. A little bit more is even better. So like right here, I got a little bit more, and I found that works really well. And so it'll likely be this cane in the back. I'll either plant, graft, or burn, and I'll keep 2 buds on this particular spur. So 1, 2, and I'll cut, and there might be one right there, but we gotta think on that. Okay, all right, so that's what they look like right now. Some of these, because of the trellis work I had to do, aren't tied up, so I'm going to come through here before I drag all this stuff out with that box blade over there. Before I drag that out, I am going to make sure that this is tied up so I don't accidentally rip out a vine. Anyway, that's what it looks like right now. I don't really want to walk down that road, but I'll lean in and show you, because I don't want to like get all tied up and tangled up in them. But that's what it looks like. Okay, so that's the rough pruning. And again, this is a 2-step process, so this first step doesn't have to be perfect. The next step, you want it to be near perfect. It never is, but you want to do it the best you can. Okay? All right, guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode of Eden's Vine. That wasn't too bad today. The sun is shining. The wind's a little bit cold, but it is a nice day, and it finally cooled off out here in Texas. So I'm very thankful for that, because you don't want to cut on these vines when it's too warm. Anyway, 2-step process. This is our rough prune. We'll come back in a month, maybe a month and a half, and we'll do a fine prune. But we want to make sure we're on the other side of that winter weather that can sometimes happen in February out here. We get some really deep freezes, and messes with a lot of stuff, not just our energy, but messes with our crop production too. So we want to make sure we're ready for that. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Again, I'm not going to make you watch the full hour and 18 minutes of pruning here, but I did want you to know that it was an hour and 18 for 2 rows, and that is VSP for the most part, vertical shoot positioning. I've got a Y cross arm at the top to let the Sangio flare out, so it's a little bit more vigorous, so it has a little bit more weight on the vine than most. There are 20 rows per 20 vines per row, so I've got 40 vines. So 40 vines in about an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, so you guys can do the math on that. That give you guys approximately how much time per vine. And then yeah, 2 rows. I've got a multiple of 7 of those, making 14 total rows. So I'm looking at anywhere from maybe 7 to about 12 hours of work here would be my thought, because I got to kind of compensate for things that I don't expect to happen. But most of the things that I don't expect to happen here in these rows. So that's why I'm doing them first. But anyway, you guys have a nice day. Thank you for joining me at Eden's Vine. If you enjoyed this stuff, let me know. Alright, let me show y'all real quick how I sterilize this hedger. The first thing I'll do is I'll come in with like a little Dremel or something and sharpen up these edges. They're okay right now for what I'm going to use it for, so I'm not going to sharpen them up too much more. The second thing I'll do is I'll put a little, if there's any gunk on here, I'll put a little rubbing alcohol and just with a rag wipe it off. But I want to make sure I have gloves on so I don't nick myself on any of these blades. And then the third thing I'll do is I'll come in here with a little torch. I'll light that up and I'll run that torch down the length of my hedger blades. And then after I do that, I'll go underneath and run it underneath and let the flame come up there too. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for any embers that spark up. And if there are any embers sparking up, that means there's some plant material there. And if there is, I'll sit there a little bit longer. Let's say there's an ember right there by my torch. I'll sit there a little bit longer and just let it heat up until that ember goes away. And then I'll go back down searching for another ember. And then I'll do that a few times, you know, until there aren't any embers left. And the idea is that with the between the rubbing alcohol and the torch, the heat from the torch, that I'm getting rid of any organic material that's on my blade that could end up out in the vineyard getting into my plants. I really don't want to spread viral infections or bacterial infections with this hedger. Now, there is always the risk that there's a vine out there that has that, and I'm going and I'll go fast and hit that vine and then hit other vines. There is that possibility, but I'm going to minimize the risk as much as possible by trying to sterilize my tools as best as I can. After I get done with that, the next thing I do is I come in here with some hedger blade spray from Steel. So this is what the can looks like. You can pick this up at any Steel dealer, and sometimes the box stores will have it too. And definitely you can order this online, but it just helps remove any additional gunk that might be on there, and helps protect the blades when they're operating. So anyway, this hedger is ready to go, and you're going to get it fired up and we're going to take it out to the vineyard. I'm also going to take a set of mechanical pruners, and I'll show you what those look like here in just a second. Alright guys, these are my battery powered pruning shears. They've got a cover on there. I'm going to leave that there for now. I'm going to do a similar process with these shears that I did with my hedger. I got to be a little bit careful though, because I don't want any of the oils or fluids to get up in the gear work of this tool. So it is battery powered, so I'm going to make sure the battery's charged. I'm going to take this out there with me just in case I need to use it for any bull canes or any canes that might be too large for my hedger. The other thing that's nice about this tool is I can use this tool with one hand. So for instance, when I had hurt my shoulders, I might show you guys a video of how I did all that, but it is possible to get the vineyard manicured with just one arm and this little guy. Okay, believe it or not, as long as you got the batteries for it, it'll get the job done. And it's actually almost better to only be using one arm with this tool, so that your other hand doesn't get in the way of the blade here. If you've got that other hand, another arm tied up when you're going through and cutting on vines, you know, that other arm doesn't have a tendency, or you avoid the tendency of getting that other arm in the way of this blade as it goes. Because once you hit the safety, and once you hit that button, that pruning shear closes, and it doesn't matter what's in the way. And if that's your finger, it's gone. Okay, so it is best to just operate this tool with one hand and not use your other hand, and keep it in a pocket or out of the way.